the last of the explorations of circle-splitting entities of our past. The previous entries have shown tragic tales of hubris, delusion, corruption, and greed. However, this is the penultimate example of all. While economic crises and environmental collapse have tested the Empire's enduring strength, it had been nearly 201 years since a multi-state military conflict had occurred when the Red Winter War broke out. This entry is a worrisome tale of how a small band of megacorporations could arrive at the doorstep of genocide. The first seeds of the Kinetic Engineering Consortium were planted shortly after the arrival of the Shueisha in the minds of the Onixitron leadership. Having shifted its focus to militech, Onixitron was looking for companies to outsource minor component creation to in an environment of prospective startups. This search was intercepted by Robotics' request for an alliance to use Shueisha technology for general robotics and synthworks. Onixitron, seeing the potential for growth in the industry, agreed, soon joined by the drone manufacturer, Unimech. The next and last member of the original consortium was found in the port city of Cape Germana on Luna's surface. The synergetic union of integrated synthworks plants, a communally staffed group of facilities in the city, would be made obsolete by the Kinetic Engineering Consortium if it came to fruition. So, the small community based around producing synths asked to be a part of the coalition and was, surprisingly, accepted. For decades, this consortium produced a wide array of products, with every member company focusing on one sphere of influence. Onixitron dominated all forms of militech and provided the carbon supply to the consortium. Unimech created mechs, cheap war droids, and drones, especially mining drones. Robotech created support bots, autonomous appliances, and extensive software platforms. Serupus placed its focus on synths and software, not yet dipping its toes into militech. This lineup was working fine enough, but as the magnetic revolution, the ability to upgrade their products, and the desire to replace their products all waned, Onixitron and Serupus decided to open a new venture. The stagnation of the late 2130s sent them on a quest to Duelicus, the Red Planet. Hoping for more secrets of the Shueisha, now that they had settled into a human-controlled planet, the companies sent representatives to the borders of human and Mechan territory. Through planet-side contacts, they were led to Cuboidal, what they believed to be a Mechan frontier city, only to realize that it was a haven of the previously thought servile Tsobu. Along with that revelation, research on the behavior of Shueisha crystals was gathered, hoping they could be the key to a new revolution in technology, spearheaded by their newly formed Cuboidal Life Company. A revolution that never came. Being born with little momentum, Cuboidal Life was devoted to finding any outstanding commercial application of the crystals. For years, the most they could do was further test the genetic modification limits of the crystals. Serupus, failing to economically innovate synthworks any further, finally joined its fellow consortium members in producing weaponry. Not too long after, Cuboidal Life made a breakthrough, a crystal that could eat and grow through ore, consolidating useful materials into a central bulb. While this was very revolutionary, it harmed the niche of mining equipment Unimech had comfortably sat in for decades, and completely restructured the terrestrial ore mining industry, leaving Unimech ultimately worse for wear. This conflicted success led Cuboidal Life to seek out not only success, but a cumulative success for the consortium. So it joined the family in the militech development. They repurposed their ore crystals and Serupus vehicles to create replicable wardroid factories. These devices were tested in the Mongolian Civil War and to shut down the Siberian separatist enclaves, scoring the consortium a series of contracts in the surrounding states. This success pushed Cuboidal Life to pursue direct weaponization of their titular crystals, while the consortium as a whole dove into the market of bloodshed. Through the initial skirmishes, pompous threats of interstate warfare, and growing concerns of anti-imperial terror, the consortium was able to get combatant, peacekeeper, and observer alike to stockpile their weaponry. Testimony from some consortium members suggests that their best hope was a short and efficient use of their products to end all conflict, then a pivot to occupation gear. However, indiscriminate use of militech and the breakdown of age-old peacekeeping techniques kept the cracks in the Empire's unity open. Conflicts and tension continued to rise. It wasn't until the February incident, an event notable for an Onixitron alienator tank being hijacked, and a questionable workers' motto being leaked in Suez, that the tensions started to flare dangerously. Trust in Anixitron waned nearly overnight. The other consortium members aggressively played for the spot Anixitron held in the market. Along with this infighting, some companies, fearing that being tied to Anixitron came off as circle splitting, tried to regain favor by performing raids on perceived threats to the Empire. Eventually, they overstepped an ongoing negotiation with Suezian separatists and murdered the entire group, settling an armistice with the Empire. This event, which almost triggered an Egyptian civil war, spurred the Empire to attempt to curtail the consortium with sanctions. Having not been involved in any of these raids, Anixitron was allowed to be exempted from the sanctions during the implementation debates. Shortly after, Anixitron left the consortium it had started 51 years prior. This didn't stop the consortium, however. When officially presented with the sanctions, they began to secretly stockpile and overproduce militech. Before the Empire could impose the first installment of sanctions, a consortium air raid into restricted airspace, an air raid that was repeatedly asked to turn away at the threat of lethal force, was fired upon and destroyed. Before any Imperial response to the dogfight could be drafted against the consortium, the Blind Night, a silent blitz into Central Afro-Eurasia, and a remote reprogramming of all consortium militech was underway. In a mere 12 hours, a third of Incuna and half of the human population was held hostage. The ultimatum was given. The consortium's show of power expressed their ability to curb-stop any separatists, so they would be allowed to do so without any sanctions or restrictions, or the Empire as it stood would be toppled to, quote, ensure world peace. The soberingly morbid choice woke the Empire up as to just how powerful the consortium became. The precedent of corporate coups could not be started. The fragile alliances that the Empire sat upon couldn't be left to a tactless belligerent. The consortium didn't leave room for negotiation and had, time and time again, shown a blatant disregard for it. The only option then was war.